Hello there, I am Fabi. Welcome to the next Big Rush. I am here with a very special guest, Dr. Rebecca Hunter of Forum Energy Metals. She's actually the VP Exploration. And so we're going to talk a little bit about geology, and we're going to try to keep it simple. It's very tough talking to intelligent people with years of knowledge and actually discoveries under the belt to actually keep the language easy enough for us newbies. I always put myself in that position. You know, it's helpful for us newbies to understand the process and the magic of geology. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Fabi.
No problem. It's a pleasure. Listen, so Forum Energy has been around for quite a while. And you guys are actually in a very interesting region of the world. You're up in Canada. It's really cold. There's lots of snow, but it is not the Athabasca Basin. So we're going to get into the region that you're active in and everything else. But before that, I want to help out the people who are new to uranium investing in general, and they might want to allocate some of their portfolio to an exploration company. Now, when they do that, obviously there is somewhat of a learning curve that they have to go through. And so in regards to a company that's, setting up and preparing to go and drill, there's a lot of stuff that goes on before they can actually do that. I'd like to ask you, Rebecca, what goes on before the company actually, makes a proper discovery? What are some of the preliminary things that happen? What are some of the studies? And how can they help you guys actually get to a point where you can have good targets to drill?
So yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, one of the big things to do at the very start when you have a new property is to just go and find out what's happened in the past. And so you have all this work that usually gets submitted to the government, and it's all really good work. And so that's the first thing I always do is I want to see exactly what everyone did before. I want to see what they were kind of trying to think and and follow up on those areas, because a lot of times even if they didn't find anything in these regions, they usually found something interesting that maybe the time they just didn't get to follow up, or maybe they didn't, the model wasn't quite there yet. So kind of some of the stuff that they might have saw, we'd look at it now and say, okay, yeah, we should be there. But then they might be like, just weren't there. So because these models and what we're finding are always evolving. I think the other big thing for me, and as a geologist, I like to delve into the geology. And I think the more you know geologically, and that's the rocks, looking at the fault structures, because that's where these uranium deposits precipitate, that's what's really important. So the more that you get in there, you get your boots on the ground, you know your rocks. Like in the Athabasca, a lot of it's already known. For the Thelon Basin, where we're going to be focusing, where Forum's focusing, a lot of that 10 years ago wasn't known very well. So we really had to walk the ground. We had to figure out exactly what we wanted to look for that would actually precipitate uranium. So that was kind of, those are the big things to me. And I guess the last thing is the model, is knowing your model, but not being super confined to your model. So having an open mind to kind of work within a general kind of, ore deposit model.
Okay, so let me see if I understood this correctly. Basically, you try to see the work of the people who came previous to you and did some work in the region, and then is it that they come up with a thesis of where the uranium might be and sort of like where it precipitated, and then what you're trying to do is to understand with new information of new studies that you're doing, like proving them wrong, proving them right, and kind of overlaying that with more modern type of, studies?
Yeah, it's building on their observations. Sometimes it's just observations. They don't even actually know that they're onto something, or they did and it didn't pan out. So it's building on their knowledge. And it's important because that's how it goes about as we do this.
Gotcha. And so you're in the Thelon Basin, which is in Nunavut. not the Athabasca. I mean, you do have projects in the Athabasca, but we want to focus on the Thelon Basin. So what kind of preliminary work has been done by you guys or by, somebody before you in the Thelon Basin to even come to a discovery? Because you've made a discovery yourself, and I'm sure that's pretty exciting. But in order to get there, like what were the different steps and different studies?
So yeah, it was the same sort of methodology. So back in the 70s and 80s, that's kind of when the last major exploration was done when I was up there with Cameco in the mid 2000s. And so it was looking into all that. What did they do? What did they see? Um, what's funny is one of the drill holes that we had a discovery on was only 5 meters away from a drill hole that was drilled in the 80s. So it shows you kind of two things. It shows you how close you can be to these things and not know it. And how even some of that work way back then was so close. Like it could have changed the landscape. Um, so yeah, so that was the big thing, and I stick by that. Know what's been done in the past, and then yeah, it was a huge. We had a huge property, and we traversed the whole length of it. So I probably walked. The property was bigger than what Forum had then, so it was about 200,000 hectares. Forum has about half that now. So a big property, and I probably walked a quarter of it. So just hammering rocks, looking at it, doing the geochem, looking for the tiniest of anomalies to kind of help you hone in. So that was the first steps, and that's what got us to where we got to discoveries with Cameco back then.
5 meters away, that is just excruciating for, the guys who drilled it back in the 80s, right? Because is it because it's so concentrated? I mean, because it's, like a lot of these deposits in Canada, like they're high grade. They're high grade because they're all concentrated in one like small area. Is this why, or is the geology all kind of crazy and so like you don't know where to look?
Yeah, so it's mostly because these deposits are small. So they're high grade, but their footprints can be quite narrow. Like sometimes, the footprints even of the big monsters in the Athabasca, like Cigar and MacArthur, they're actual in some dimensions. They're only 100 meters wide. So they're easy to miss. And some of the stuff that we're looking for in the Thelon so far is even narrower. And the models were different then too. So when um, in the 80s when they were looking, the Gar and MacArthur hadn't even been found yet. So they were looking for stuff very similar to Rabbit Lake. And so they were drilling really shallow. So sometimes they didn't drill deeper than 100 meters. And so some of that's just the case. Our discovery at Kavik, it wasn't until about 300 meters or 250 meters that I was actually going to go shut the hole down because I'm like, well, I haven't really found anything yet. Went to the drill. The drillers were like, yeah, it's pretty boring. So it's time to shut it down. But it was all what we call bleached. So the whole rock was white. And it's like, well, we're not shutting down because now we're into something. We're into some sort of alteration anyway. So, and then later on that night they hit mineralization. So that's kind of what you're working with up there.
Wow. And so how does the Phelan Basin compare to the Athabasca Basin? How would you describe it?
So overall, it's really similar. So it's the Athabasca is the basin itself is a big quartz-rich or sandstone basin, and the Thelon Basin is exactly the same age, which is old. It was deposited between 1.7 and 1.5 billion years ago. So they're both the same that way. And then, yeah, they overlie in general, like when they formed, um, these big sandstone basins formed, there's big mountain chains that were on either side, like kind of Himalayan style big mountain chains. And these sediments, came into these basins and were deposited. And that was along that whole corridor. So the Athabasca formed, and then to the north, the Thelon formed. And so, it's just kind of the same setting, so same time in the Earth's history and the same setting.
Interesting. And so what have you discovered so far in Nunavut? You've mentioned the how you discovered, but what did you actually discover?
So the main things we discovered were two basement hosted deposits, and that's when I was with Cameco. So yeah, so we're looking because in the area there's already deposits. And so there's about 133 million pounds that was discovered previously. So that was discovered in the 70s and the kind of the 80s, 90s. And that was by Uranga Cell Shaft and then later on by Riva, which is Orano now. So that's what's there already. And so when we were up there, basically we're chasing similar rock types, similar structures. And that was the discoveries we made with Cameco. So my team and myself, and that's Tadagak and Kavik. So far, they were discovered in 2009 and 2010, and then by the time 2012 rolled around, Fukushima happened, and everything was done. So we just basically discovered them, got some nice holes into them, knowing that there's something here, and then the money was gone. So then we never really got to a delineation stage. And so they're just so Tadagak being the main one. It's about we've done kind of an in-house non 43101. It's about 7 million pounds. And it still has all this room to actually bring it up to an actual resource.
Interesting. When you say Nunavut, most people uh, don't think that there has been that many pounds found in Nunavut because Ariba doesn't really open up their books for scrutiny by to the average person anyway. Uh, what sort of mining activity is happening in the area? Are there different minerals that are being mined? Is it more just discovery stage of different projects? Like, what can you tell us?
So in the Thelon Basin itself, it's just basically Forum. Forum has this new project. So we're the only ones actually actively exploring in the Thelon Basin, and then Orano is their projects in care and maintenance right now. So they're not doing any work, but they're maintaining the ground and they're maintaining the leases. The other work in the area would be Agnico Eagle. It's been very active in Nunavut for the over a decade now. And so that's for looking for gold. And so they're about 100 kilometers or maybe 150 kilometers northeast of us. And so they've got these gold deposits there. And then they also have some more closer to the Hudson Bay. So they're very active in the area. And that mining, Nunavut's GDP is about 50% mining based on just that alone. Agnico as well as Baffinland, which is an iron ore mine up on Baffin Island. That's far away from the Thelon, though.
That's super interesting. I wouldn't have thought it was that much of their local GDP, but that's really good to hear because guess what? Usually it's those types of regions that are more open to mining and like facilitate mining as they should. What is the plan for drilling? You said that you had a discovery and you have an unofficial resource estimate that's not yet compliant. But what do you plan to do now? Are you going back there anytime soon to drill? What's happening?
So this year we're going to get up there. So we're going to start drilling in July. So we're going to get up to the project finally. And so the main plan is just going to be a small program. So it's only going to be 2,000 meters just to start. Um, and we're going to basically drill about 4 or 5 holes into Tadagak. And that's just to infill. So we have this huge anomaly. It's about 1.5 kilometers long. And only about 300 meters of that has been drilled in any major way. And that's where the mineralization has been discovered to date. And so we're going to infill a bit into that area because some of it's quite widely spaced. And that'll help us build the resource a bit. And then we're going to drill one hole into the main zone. It's been drilled quite a bit, but I think one more hole would be really good to just really solidify the structural kind of settings so we can target a lot better in the rest of the anomaly. So it's kind of a strategic hole for that. And then we have a couple other more kind of elephant hunting. So we kind of have two components to our exploration. We want to build on the discoveries that were found previously, but we also want to make more discoveries. And so when I was up there last, I had some pretty big areas that I wanted to get to before Fukushima happened. And so with Forum now, I have that opportunity. And so the grids that we're going to focus on is Ned and Bjorn. And so they're really good anomalies. They're along a major, they have all those characteristics. They have the really good geology, really good structure, everything that you would need potentially to find something big. And so to really get the Thelon on the map, we want to actually find, something like MacArthur cigar. We want to find a high tonnage, high grade, and show the world, I guess, that the Thelon Basin has that same potential that the Athabasca has shown us for many years.
That would be amazing. So, what does success look like? What would you like to see in those rounds?
So, as far as the drilling off Tadagac, we just want to hit the mineralization. We want to prove it's there. So right now it's all kind of under Cameco's banner. So it'll finally be under Forum's banner. And then the elephant hunting holes, like a win would even be alteration, because that would just show you're in the right area. Like it takes, like I said, these deposits can be very small. They can be extremely easy to miss, but you get that alteration, that would be a big win. And then anything beyond that would be an incredible win. So you get the right geochemistry, some of the pathfinders, uranium, of course. That would be really good. And then we'd have something to really follow up on in 2024.
Sure. And so, when did you say you're getting up there to drill?
July. So
July.
in a month.
So in about a month, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I'm sure there's lots of prepping, and you gotta. People have no idea of the amount of work that it takes, to go to a remote place like that and actually set up camp and be able to do the work. It is like it's mammoth, right? It's mammoth work that it takes just to be even able to drill, let alone, to have the luck and geological background to make the discovery. So, Becca, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. Where can people find out more about Forum Energy Metals and what you guys are up to? And we're going to want to know about, your campaign and drill results, etc. Where can they follow you?
Well, we have our website, so of course the Forum Energy Metals, and then we have a Twitter account, and we're on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best way. We have lots of videos. Like if you go to our kind of like news section on our website, we've done lots of videos and stuff like that, so you can find out more too.
Awesome. Well, we will be following, and hopefully we'll not just see you expand the current resource, but who knows, maybe you hit one of those elephant hunting targets, and then we'll invite you back, and then you can tell us all about it. All about how you almost missed it, but then you found it. That's how it
That'd
goes.
be that'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rebecca. See you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Fabi.